Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Jack and today I've got another video for you sharing my experiences of the civil service interview process. I'm going to cover one of the lesser known behaviours today. We're going to talk about changing and improving. If you're new here and you're interested in some of the other behaviours, I would recommend you go back through my channel. There's a playlist on my homepage with all the videos that I've done on the civil service interview process, and I would highly recommend you start there. In this video, I'm going to talk about what I think the behavior is all about, and I've also come up with some questions that I think you could be asked. As I've done in previous videos, I would recommend you pause the question, think about how you would answer it, and then I'll take you through my thoughts on how I think I would approach it. Final thing before we start the questions, these are my experiences and are not to be considered official guidance. Hopefully you all know that by now, but I have to say that every single time. Without further ado, let's just get straight into it. Okay, changing and improving. I actually like this behavior because it ties into my analytical side. When I think of changing and improving, I'm thinking of how do I make things more efficient, and usually it comes down to processes that we do quite often and take a lot of time. I'm always thinking about, right, how can we automate this, or how can we minimize the time that we waste doing that all the time? And this is generally how I think of changing and improving. When being asked questions on this behavior and preparing for your interview, I would encourage you to think about times where you've changed your ways of working or maybe improved something that you've identified just isn't as efficient as it could be. Maybe there's a task that you or your team do regularly which just seems to take absolutely ages, and you thought of a creative way to solve that problem. Or maybe you noticed that since you've been working from home, the team dynamic doesn't quite work and processes are becoming a bit muddled. So maybe you introduce something to combat that and improve that process. Just think about times when you've identified the need for change, come up with the way to improve it, and then implemented that. Generally, I think this behavior can be tackled that way. I would mention how you identified the need for change, talk about the change that you implemented and the steps you took to ensure that this was properly implemented, and then talk about the result of having implemented that change. Make sure you talk about things where the change was actually needed and that you got a big result, because otherwise it just looks like you're making changes for the sake of making changes. Like I said in my communicating and influencing video, I'm not fully sure if the civil service are doing strength-based questions over virtual Teams interviews like this. However, I've included one because at some point in the future, we may go back to the office and you might be asked a strength question. And I think it's better to be over-prepared than be shocked at the interview. So the strength question that I came up with for changing and improving is as follows. How do you always strive to do better? So as you can tell, this is quite a vague question, but I think I have been asked something similar in the past. And generally what I would recommend you do is talk about ways in which you are continually improving at work. For instance, things I like to do are learning new skills by attending online learning sessions, both run by the organization and externally. Maybe I'm doing courses on data camp in order to try and improve my skills with a particular piece of software. Also, another thing you can do is always be getting feedback on pieces of work that you do. Do a lessons learned after you've completed a project, and you'll discover ways that you can make it more efficient for next time you do it. And this ensures that in everything you do, you're continually improving going forward. You can also keep up to date with news in your industry by subscribing to newsletters, both free and paid. You can also follow certain topics and people on LinkedIn to ensure that you are up to date with the relevant news within your industry. What you are actually trying to show with this strength question is how you are actively trying to improve and get better. Any examples that you've done in your current role and previous roles, touch upon them, and hopefully this will give the panel an idea of how you go about continuing to develop. With your team, you should be asking, how can we improve? How can we do better? How can we free up capacity? All of these things show that you have a growth mindset and not a fixed mindset. And this is important for continuing to strive to do better, because it shows that you think given any amount of time and enough perseverance, you can learn and do better, and not that you're capped at your potential, if that makes sense. Okay, we've done the strength question. Now we're going to move on to the situational type question, which is designed to be more future facing and give an insight into how you would approach a certain situation. So the situational question that I came up with for changing and improving is as follows. Imagine that you join a team and you quickly identify potential to make a common process a lot more efficient. How would you go about getting people to adopt your approach? So a lot of the time when we come up with new ways to innovate, improve and change things for the better, that's kind of the easy part. The difficult part is getting people to actually adopt these changes and use it in their everyday roles. It's all well and good having these new ideas and a fresh perspective when you join a team. However, it's really, really difficult to get old team members to change what they've been doing for the past couple of years or maybe even longer. Embedded processes like this in the civil service are often there for a reason. It's because a lot of the time it's very difficult to change the way things are done. And then you come in with your fresh perspective and you're like, oh, we could change that, we could change that. So this question is trying to test how would you go about influencing these changes and getting people to adopt. I would start by presenting what I've witnessed and what I've seen on the team and just saying it from a fresh perspective, not in a conflict-seeking way or anything like that, just saying what you've observed and what you think could potentially be better. I then think it's better to show people a solution. So what I would do is do a comparison between what the process is now and what I think it should be in the future. By showing people a solution rather than highlighting the problem, I think people are a lot more willing to listen and take it on board. I would then present a proposal and show that I was serious about making these changes because I think that it could really benefit the team and obviously try and sell the benefits to them. Whenever you change something like this, it does require a lot of work from people. So you need to really sell the benefits and how it's going to make their lives easier. Some of these benefits could be the amount of time they will have freed up to do other things. It may require a bit of grunt work up front, but in the future, this will mean that we have more time to do this and more time to spend on that, and maybe more time to spend on the fun projects as opposed to just business as usual. Instead of implementing my suggestion straight away, I would suggest maybe a trial period where we just do it for a few weeks. We gather feedback and then we iterate on and move forward. By doing it this way, gathering feedback and then going into another trial or another cycle, it makes it a lot less daunting for people because there's always the option that you can go back to the old way of doing things. However, the idea is that once you iterate through, keep getting feedback, you arrive at something that everyone is happy with. Notice that I didn't just say, we're going to adopt my way and do it this way instantly. This is not very good in the civil service because a lot of the time we work with legacy systems that have been around for years and years, and it's not a simple case of just changing something or implementing something new. There is a lot of procedure to go through before making especially large changes. Okay, final question is the competency past example style question. The one I came up with for changing and improving is as follows. Tell me about a time when you've improved or changed the way you work for the better. So this is quite a vague question, and I guess the point I'd like to make is that it doesn't have to be this huge task. It can literally be anything that you've changed and improved. The point I would really like to highlight is the result of having made this improvement. For these questions, you know that we recommend using the STAR approach. You really want to highlight the result of having made this change. There's nothing worse than making a change and there being no impact. So it's important that you measure the results of the change before and then the results of the change after. What you're hoping to see is a big improvement after having made this change. I can't really go into the nitty-gritty of how I would do this example because I work with sensitive data and it's not for wider sharing. However, what I have done is come up with some things that could get you thinking about an example that you could use for this. Okay, number one, think about things that you do regularly and processes that occur weekly, monthly, quarterly, daily. Think about times when you've maybe made any of these more efficient. Number two, have you done a review of the outputs of the team? Maybe streamlined some work, got rid of some things that don't belong, changed, modified. Think about a review of the team's outputs. Three, maybe you did some user research after a project. What I mean by user research is you completed a piece of work and then you did a lessons learned and you went back to the stakeholder and said, okay, I've done this piece of work. I know you said it was good, but what can I improve in the future going forward? Number four, working from home style. I know that a lot of people have struggled with team management and software, etc. Think about any changes you've made and how they've maybe improved and what you've trialed and errored there. Number five, have you maybe outsourced some work or removed some work that you didn't feel was adding value? Or maybe you outsourced some work that was better served elsewhere, which freed up your time on the team or your personal time to do other more important things. Six, think about times where you've collaborated with others and you saw a direct improvement from this. Within the civil service, we're always doing knowledge sharing between government departments. If you're not in the civil service, think about times where you've maybe attended training or you've brought in a consultant, etc. What have you learned from then? What have you implemented? And talk about the result of that. Which brings me on to my final point, number 7, which is talk about some learning that you've done maybe through an external supplier or an internal supplier, and how you went away, implemented that into your work and saw a big improvement as a result. I hope some of those points will give you an idea of the things that you should be thinking about. Obviously, it's going to be different person to person, but I can imagine that you're probably going to relate to 1 or 2 of these points. Hopefully, they give you some food for thought on how you've improved or changed your work for the better. That is all for this video, everyone. That is Changing and Improving done. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please let me know down in the comments and hit the like button down below. Hope you all have a great day. Take care, and I'll see you soon.